Chapter 1. The Murmur in the Night. The autumn wind howled across the Yorkshire moors, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into the very stones of Blackwood Manor. Hercule Poirot, seated in the plush interior of a hired motor car, adjusted his scarf and gazed out at the looming silhouette of the manor against the twilight sky. The invitation from Lady Beatrice Harrow had been unexpected, arriving at his London flat with an air of urgency that piqued his curiosity. A matter most peculiar, the letter had said, a whispering in the chimney that disturbs the peace of my home. Poirot, ever intrigued by the unusual, had accepted without hesitation. After all, a mystery, however small, was a challenge to his little grey cells. As the car crunched to a halt on the gravel drive, Poirot stepped out, his polished shoes gleaming despite the gathering dusk. The manor was a grand, if weathered, structure. Its ivy-clad walls and tall chimneys spoke of centuries past, of secrets buried in stone. A butler, stern-faced and impeccably dressed, greeted him at the door. "Monsieur Poirot, I presume? Lady Harrow awaits you in the drawing-room." The interior of Blackwood Manor was as imposing as its exterior. High ceilings, adorned with intricate plasterwork, loomed over dark oak panelling. A faint scent of wood smoke lingered, though no fire burned in the hearths. Poirot's keen eyes noted the details: a slightly askew portrait, a vase of wilting roses, the nervous fidgeting of a maid who scurried past. These were the threads of a tapestry, yet to be woven. In the drawing-room, Lady Beatrice Harrow rose to greet him. She was a woman of late middle age, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, her eyes sharp despite the lines of worry etched into her face. "Monsieur Poirot, I am most grateful you've come," she said, her voice cultured but tinged with unease. "This phenomenon in the chimney has unsettled my household. It is no ordinary sound, you understand. It whispers, as if alive." Poirot inclined his head, his moustache twitching slightly. "Madame, you intrigue me. A chimney that whispers. C'est extraordinaire. Pray describe this sound, and when it began." Lady Beatrice gestured to a seat by a cold fireplace, its blackened maw gaping like a silent witness. "It started 3 weeks ago, after the death of my cousin, Sir Edmund Harrow. A heart attack, the doctor said, though he was not an old man. Since then, at night the chimney in the east wing emits a sound like voices, soft and indistinct, yet menacing. The servants swear it's Sir Edmund's ghost, but I am not so fanciful. Still, it is disturbing." Poirot's sit's eyes gleamed. "And who resides in this manor, madame, that I may understand the players in this curious drama?" Lady Beatrice introduced the household. Her nephew, Roland Harrow, a young man of 30 with a restless energy, was heir to the estate. Miss Clara Dunley, the governess to Roland's young cousin Emily, was a quiet woman whose nervous glances suggested hidden fears. Dr. Frederick Langston, an archaeologist staying as a guest, had been cataloguing artifacts found on the estate. Finally, Mr. Clarence Whitby, a solicitor and friend of the late Sir Edmund, had arrived days ago to settle estate matters. Each, Poirot noted, carried an air of unease, as if the whispering chimney had stirred more than superstition. As they spoke, Roland entered, his handsome face clouded. "Aunt Beatrice, must we entertain this nonsense? It's likely just the wind." His tone was dismissive, but his eyes darted toward the fireplace. Poirot smiled benignly.
He?
"Monsieur Harrow, the wind is a simple creature.
No.
It howls, it moans, but it does not whisper. I should like to hear this sound for myself." That night, Poirot was shown to a guest room in the east wing, conveniently near the infamous chimney. The room was comfortable, with heavy drapes and a 4-poster bed, but the air felt thick with anticipation. As midnight approached, Poirot sat by the window, his notebook open, his senses alert. The manor was silent, save for the occasional creak of settling wood. Then, faintly it began, a low, sibilant murmur, like voices speaking just beyond comprehension. It came from the chimney, rising and falling, now a hiss, now a wordless chant. Poirot's pulse quickened. This was no mere draught. He rose, slipping on his dressing gown, and approached the fireplace. The sound grew clearer, though still unintelligible. Kneeling, he examined the hearth, noting a faint scorch mark on the stone barely visible in the moonlight. His fingers traced the edges, finding nothing loose or unusual, yet the sound persisted, a riddle wrapped in stone. The next morning, Poirot joined the household for breakfast. The atmosphere was strained. Miss Dunley dropped her teacup when Roland mentioned the whispering, and Dr. Langston's attempts at joviality fell flat. Mr. Whitby, a thin man with sharp features, spoke little, his eyes fixed on his plate. Poirot observed them all, his mind cataloguing their reactions. "Madame," he said to Lady Beatrice, "this sound it is most curious. I shall require access to the chimney's structure, and perhaps a history of the manor. There is much to uncover." Lady Beatrice nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. The manor sept's records are in the library. But be warned, some say the chimney sept's whispers are a curse tied to a tragedy long ago." Poirot Sep's smile was enigmatic. "A curse, madame? Non, non. The only curse is ignorance, and Hercule Poirot shall dispel it. Tell me, who was last to see Sir Edmund alive?" Roland answered, his voice tight. "I was. We spoke in his study the night he died. He seemed agitated, but healthy enough." "And what agitated him, monsieur?" Roland hesitated, glancing at his aunt. Family matters. Nothing unusual. Poirot's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. The meal concluded in silence, broken only by the distant howl of the wind. As Poirot rose, he caught Miss Dunley's fleeting glance toward the east wing, a look of fear and something else, guilt perhaps. The little grey cells were already at work, weaving connections. Stepping outside, Poirot gazed at the manor's towering chimney, its stones weathered but unyielding. The whispering was no ghost. Of that he was certain, but what purpose did it serve? A warning, a deception, or something darker? As the wind stirred the leaves, Poirot felt the thrill of the chase. The case of the whispering chimney had begun, and he would follow its murmurs to the truth. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Ashwood Manor, but its warmth did little to dispel the chill that clung to the ancient stones. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed despite the early hour, stood in the library, his gloved hands clasped behind his back. The room was a treasure trove of history, shelves lined with leather-bound volumes, maps and faded photographs, all whispering of the manor's storied past. Lady Beatrice had granted him access to the archives, and Poirot intended to unravel the enigma of the whispering chimney by tracing its origins. A sound that spoke, he mused, was no mere whim of nature. It had a purpose, and that purpose lay buried in time. The librarian, Mrs. Agnes Poole, was a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a guarded demeanour. She hovered near a mahogany desk, arranging papers with a precision that bordered on obsession. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low, "the manor's records go back 3 centuries. What exactly do you seek?" Poirot Sep's moustache twitched. "Madame Poole, I seek the heart of this house, its joys, its tragedies, the chimney that whispers. It is no accident. Nestor Fair, tell me of the events that mark Ashwood Manor, particularly those tied to the east wing." Mrs. Poole's hand stilled, her gaze flickering toward the window. "The east wing. Yes, there was a fire long ago. In 1873, Miss Eleanor Harrow, the young heiress, perished in her room. The chimney was blamed. Faulty, they said, though some whispered of foul play. The family never spoke of it after." Poirot Sep's eyes gleamed. Foul play. Interessant. And this fire, it began in the chimney of the east wing. "So the records say." Mrs. Poole hesitated, then retrieved a dusty ledger from a shelf. "Here the accounts are vague, but they mention strange noises before the fire, whistling, moaning sounds. The villagers called it a curse." Poirot opened the ledger, his fingers tracing faded ink. The entry was brief. "A fire on December 12, 1873, consuming Miss Eleanor's room. No cause was confirmed, but a servant's testimony mentioned unnatural sounds from the chimney days prior." Poirot's mind raced. A pattern, perhaps, the past echoing into the present. He closed the ledger and turned to Mrs. Poole. And Sir Edmund Harrow, the recent tragedy, did he speak of this history? Her lips tightened. Sir Edmund was curious about the Manor-sept's past. He spent hours here, reading old letters, studying blueprints. He said little, but he was troubled, especially after finding an old journal. A journal. Poirot Sipser's voice was sharp. Where is it now? Mrs. Poole shook her head. Gone, monsieur. It vanished after his death. I assumed Mr. Whitby took it for the estate-seb's affairs. Poirot filed this away, his suspicion of Clarence Whitby deepening. The solicitous reticence at breakfast had not escaped his notice. Merci, Madame Poole. You have been most helpful. Leaving the library, Poirot sought out the household staff, determined to uncover their perspectives. In the kitchens, he found Molly, the young maid he'd seen the previous night. Her hands trembled as she polished silver, and her eyes darted to the door. "Messieurs," she stammered, "I don't like talking about it. The whispering. It's not right. It's like someone's trapped in there." Poirot adopted a soothing tone. "Mademoiselle Molly, fear is a shadow, easily dispelled by light. When did you first hear this sound?" "After Sir Edmund died," she whispered. "I was cleaning the east wing near the chimney room. It started soft, like a sigh, but at night it sells words, monsieur. I swear I heard Fabouer sells. Once." Poirot's eyebrows rose. "Words, you say? C'est curieux. And who else was near the east wing that night?" Molly hesitated, then leaned closer. Mr. Rowland was there, pacing, and Miss Dunley, she was crying, though she tried to hide it. The governess again. Poirot recalled Clara Dunley's nervous glances, her dropped teacup. A thread was forming, delicate but persistent. He thanked Molly and moved to the servants' quarters, where he found Mr. Grayson, the butler, polishing boots with military precision. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot began, "you have served the Harrow family long way. What do you make of this whispering?" Grayson Sepp's face remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened. "I have heard it, sir. It sets no ghost, if that sets what you set's asking. This house has secrets, but they seps human ones. Sir Edmund was digging into things best left alone. Such as—" Grayson Sells met Poirot Sipsters, steady and unyielding. "Old debts, old grudges. The Harrows have enemies, even now. That archaeologist, Dr. Langston, he Sip's been poking about the grounds, unearthing things. Sir Edmund didn't set us like it." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing the butler's words. Dr. Langston's presence, ostensibly to catalogue artifacts, now seemed less innocent. An archaeologist digging up the past, literal and figurative, could stir trouble. As noon approached, Poirot returned to the east wing, drawn to the chimney room. The fireplace was cold, its stones blackened by years of use. The whispering had ceased in the daylight, but Poirot knelt again, examining the hearth. A faint scratch mark caught his eye, barely visible near the scorch he'd noted before. It was deliberate, not accidental, a sign of tampering. He made a mental note to inspect the chimney's structure with proper tools. At luncheon, the household gathered in the dining room, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Lady Beatrice presided, her composure strained. Rowland spoke loudly of estate repairs, but his eyes avoided Poirot's. Clara Dunley sat silently, her hands folded tightly. Dr. Langston attempted levity, recounting a dig in Egypt, but his laughter rang hollow. Clarence Whitby, ever the shadow, ate sparingly, his gaze fixed on a distant point. Poirot broke the silence. "Monsieur Whitby, you were close to Sir Edmund, oui? Did he mention a journal?" "Perhaps one concerning the Manor-sept's history." Whitby Sebb's fork paused mid-air. "A journal?" "No, Monsieur Poirot. He spoke of legal matters. Nothing more." Poirot smiled, his eyes sharp. "Vraiment? Yet I hear of a missing journal, one that troubled him. Curious, is it not?" Whitby Sepp's face paled, but he said nothing. Lady Beatrice interjected, her voice sharp. "Monsieur Poirot, you mustn't distress my guests. This talk of journals and whispers, it's fanciful." Fanciful, madame? Poirot's tone was mild, but his gaze was piercing. The truth is never fanciful. It is precise, like a well-placed stitch. I shall find it. As the meal ended, Poirot stepped onto the terrace, the wind carrying the scent of damp earth. The chimney loomed above, its silhouette stark against the grey sky. The past was alive in Ashwood Manor, its shadows reaching into the present. Eleanor Harrow's fire, Sir Edmund's death, the missing journal, all were pieces of a puzzle. The whispering chimney, Poirot knew, was no mere oddity. It was a key, and he would turn it. Chapter 3. The Locked Room Riddle. The morning at Ashwood Manor dawned under a pall of grey clouds, as if the heavens themselves sensed the storm brewing within. Hercule Poirot, ever punctual, descended to the dining-room for breakfast, his mind abuzz with the threads of the mystery, the whispering chimney, the missing journal, the echoes of a long-ago fire. The household was already seated, their faces a tableau of strained civility. Lady Betches sipped her tea with forced calm. Roland Harrow fidgeted with his napkin. Clara Dunley stared at her plate, and Dr. Langston recounted an anecdote with unconvincing cheer. Only Clarence Whitby was absent, a fact that drew Poirot's sharp gaze. "Where is Monsieur Whitby?" Poirot inquired, his tone deceptively mild. "He is not one to miss a meal, n'est-ce pas?" Lady Beatrice frowned. "He sits likely in his room reviewing papers. He sets being preoccupied with Edmund Set's estate." Poirot nodded, but his instincts stirred. A solicitor so dedicated should not be tardy without reason. "Perhaps, madame, we should ensure all is well." Before anyone could respond, a piercing scream echoed from the east wing. The household froze, then rose as one, following Poirot as he moved swiftly toward the sound. It came from the corridor near the chimney room, where Molly, the maid, stood trembling, her face ashen. "It's Mr. Whitby," she gasped. "He's dead." Poirot reached the door to Whitby's room, a heavy oak panel locked from the inside. Grayson, the butler, produced a master key, and with a click the door swung open. The sight within stilled even Poirot's practiced heart. Clarence Whitby lay sprawled on the floor, his thin frame motionless, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The room was undisturbed, no overturned furniture, no signs of struggle. The window was latched, the curtains still. Most curiously, the fireplace, connected to the infamous chimney, bore a faint burn mark on its hearth, similar to the one Poirot had noted in his own room. A book, its pages splayed, lay near Whitby's hand, titled The Architecture of Yorkshire Manors. Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved fingers probing gently. No pulse, no warmth. Whitby had been dead for hours. The skin was pale, save for a slight redness around the neck, and there was no visible wound. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. A death so silent, yet so loud in its implications. "Whitby, Dieu." Lady Beatrice clutched her shawl, her voice trembling. "How could this happen?" "The door was locked." "Indeed, madame," Poirot replied, his eyes scanning the room. A locked room is a puzzle, and Hercule Poirot delights in puzzles. "We must summon the authorities, but first I shall observe." Roland, his face pale, muttered, "It's Stet's the curse. The chimney, first Edmund, now Whitby." Poirot's mustache twitched. "A curse, monsieur. None. A curse does not lock doors. Let us seek the truth, not superstition." The local constable, a stout man named Harris, arrived within the hour, accompanied by Dr. Morton, the village physician. Morton examined the body, his brow furrowing. "No obvious cause of death," he declared. "No wounds, no signs of poisoning, at least none visible. I'll need an autopsy to be certain." Poirot nodded, his mind already at work. "And the time of death, doctor?" "Likely between midnight and 3 a.m., Morton replied. "The body sits cold, but rigor is just setting in." Poirot turned his attention to the room. The fireplace drew his eye, its burn mark fresh, unlike the aged soot around it. He picked up the book, noting a page marked with a folded corner, describing the manor's chimney system. A passage was underlined. The east wing chimney, constructed in 1650, is uniquely designed with internal flues that amplify sound. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The whispering, the book, the burn mark clues, all of them pointing to a deliberate act. He questioned the household, each member's reaction a thread in the tapestry. Lady Beatrice was shaken but composed, insisting Whitby had no enemies. Roland's agitation bordered on anger. His fists clenched as he spoke of Whitby's meddling in family affairs. Clara Dunley, pale and trembling, claimed to have been asleep, though her eyes avoided Poirot's. Dr. Langston, curiously detached, mentioned seeing Whitby in the library late the previous evening, poring over documents. Grayson, the butler, confirmed locking the manor's outer doors at 10, with no signs of intrusion. Molly, still shaken, whispered to Poirot, "I heard the whispering again last night, monsieur. Louder, near Mr. Whitby Sepper's room. I didn't dare go near." Poirot patted her arm. "Courage, mademoiselle. The truth will protect you. Did you see anyone in the corridor?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, but I heard footsteps, heavy ones, before the whispering started." Poirot's mind catalogued this detail. Footsteps, a locked door, a burn mark, a book. The pieces were disparate, yet they formed a pattern. He returned to the room, examining the lock. It was intact, with no signs of tampering. The window, too, was secure, its latch rusted from disuse. The chimney, however, intrigued him. Kneeling, he peered up the flue, noting a faint draught and a peculiar echo when he tapped the stone. The whispering, he suspected, was no mere acoustic quirk. It was engineered. As the constable sealed the room, Poirot gathered the household in the drawing-room. "Mes amis," he began, his voice calm but commanding, "we face a tragedy but also a riddle. Monsieur Whitby did not die by accident, nor by curse. Someone in this manor knows more than they say. I, Hercule Poirot, shall uncover it." Lady Beatrice Sefsa's eyes widened. "You mean murder?" Poirot inclined his head. "Why, madame, a murder most cunning hidden behind a locked door. But no door is locked to the truth." The room fell silent, each face a mask of fear, guilt, or defiance. Roland shifted uncomfortably. Clara's hands twisted in her lap, and Langston's smile was strained. Poirot's gaze lingered on each, his little grey cells weaving connections. Whitby's death was linked to Sir Edmund's, to the journal, to the chimney's whispers. But how? As the household dispersed, Poirot lingered by the fireplace, its cold hearth a mirror to the mystery. The burn mark, the book, the locked door. They were signposts, leading to a truth buried in Ashwood Manor's shadows. The whispering chimney, he knew, held the key, and he would not rest until it spoke clearly. Chapter 4. Whispers of motive. The air in Ashwood Manor seemed to thicken with suspicion, as if the very walls absorbed the tension of Clarence Whitby's death. Hercule Poirot stood in the east wing corridor, his eyes fixed on the sealed door of the locked room where the solicitor had met his end. The whispering chimney, silent in the daylight, loomed in his mind, a puzzle within a puzzle. The burn mark, the book, the locked door. These were not random, but threads in a tapestry of deceit. To unravel it, Poirot knew he must probe the hearts of those within the manor, for motive was the key to murder. He began his inquiries in the morning-room, where Lady Beatrice Harrow sat with a cup of tea, her composure fraying at the edges. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice strained, "this tragedy is unbearable. First Edmund, now Clarence. Is my home cursed?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "Madame, a curse is but a story we tell to hide the truth. Monsieur Whitby was your solicitor." "We. What business did he conduct here?" Lady Beatrice hesitated, her fingers tightening on the cup. "He was settling Edmund Set's estate. There were complications, debts mostly from Edmund Set's investments. Clarence was discreet, but he hinted at disputes over the will." "Disputes?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And who stood to gain or lose from these disputes?" Her gaze faltered. Roland naturally as heir, but there were others, creditors, distant cousins. Clarence was still reviewing documents. Poirot nodded, filing away her reluctance. A disputed will was a fertile ground for motive. He next sought Roland Harrow, finding him in the billiard room, aimlessly striking balls. The young man's face was taut, his eyes shadowed by sleeplessness. "Monsieur Harrow," Poirot began, "you were not fond of Monsieur Whitby, I think." Roland Fett's cue paused mid-strike. He was a necessary evil, poking into family affairs. "He didn't set like me. Thought I was reckless. But I didn't set kill him, if that sets what you set implying." Poirot smiled benignly. Non. I imply nothing. But tell me, what did you discuss with Monsieur Whitby the night before his death?" Roland Sayes, jaw tightened. "He was badgering me about the estate since finances. Said I since need to sell land to cover debts. I told him to mind his own business." "And where were you when the whispering was heard last night?" "In my room," Roland snapped. "Ask anyone." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, and yet Mademoiselle Molly heard footsteps near the east wing. Heavy ones, n'est-ce pas? Roland flushed but said nothing, turning back to the billiard table. Poirot left him, his mind noting the young man's defensiveness, a motive rooted in inheritance perhaps, or something deeper. Next, Poirot found Clara Dunley in the nursery, reading to young Emily. The governess's hands trembled as she turned the pages, her eyes darting to the door. "Mademoiselle Dunley," Poirot said softly, "you are troubled. The death of Monsieur Whitby, it affects you deeply." "Oui." Clara Sade's voice was barely a whisper. "It sits horrible. I didn't know him well, but he was kind to Emily. He gave her a book once." Poirot's sister's eyebrows rose. "A book? The same, perhaps, as the one found near his body?" She paled. "No, a children's sights book. I don't know about the other one." "And last night?" Poirot pressed. "Where were you when the whispering filled the east wing?" "In my room," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I heard nothing." Poirot's smile was gentle but piercing. "Vraiment? Yet your room is near the east wing. A sound so distinct would not escape you." Clara looked away, her fingers twisting the book's pages. Poirot noted her fear, her evasiveness, a secret perhaps tied to her past in the manor. Dr. Frederick Langston was in the garden, sketching an ancient stone unearthed on the grounds. His joviality seemed forced, his eyes wary. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, "this business with Whitby is grim. Any theories?" "Many, monsieur," Poirot replied. "You saw Monsieur Whitby in the library last night, oui? What was he studying?" Langston shrugged. "Old maps, I think. He was obsessed with the Manor Sep's history. Like Edmund. Asked me about the Chimney Sep's construction. Said it was so unusual." Poirot's interest sharpened. "Unusual in what way?" "He didn't stay, just muttered about flues and acoustics. I thought he was overworked." Poirot nodded, but his mind raced. The book in Whitby's room, the underlined passage about the chimney's flues, it was no coincidence. The whispering was deliberate, a tool or a distraction. But for what? That night, the household gathered for dinner, the atmosphere heavy with dread. The whispering returned. Louder now, a sibilant murmur that seemed to mock their unease. Lady Beatrice dropped her fork. Roland swore under his breath, and Clara excused herself, claiming a headache. Poirot observed them all, his little grey cells weaving connections. The sound was no ghost, he was certain. It was mechanical, a trick to unsettle or conceal. After dinner, Poirot returned to the chimney room, now unsealed at his request. The burn mark on the hearth remained, its edges sharp, suggesting recent heat. He tapped the stones, listening for echoes, and noted a faint hollowness behind one panel, a hidden mechanism. He would need tools to investigate further, but the idea took root. The chimney was not merely a conduit for sound, but a stage for deception. As he left the room, he encountered Grayson, the butler, carrying a tray. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, "you have seen much in this house. Did Monsieur Whitby ever speak of enemies?" Grayson Sept's face was impassive. "He mentioned no name, sir, but he was uneasy. Said someone was watching him." "Interessant," Poirot murmured. "And the whispering, did it trouble him?" Grayson hesitated. "He thought it was a trick, sir. Said it reminded him of something his son read about, old houses with secret passages." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Passages, flues, a book on architecture. The pieces were aligning, but the picture remained incomplete. He bid Grayson good night and retired to his room, where he sat by the window, his notebook open. The whispering persisted, a low chant that seemed to taunt him. He wrote, "Motive, greed, revenge, or secrets. The chimney speaks, but who makes it sing?" As the clock struck midnight, Poirot's thoughts turned to the household. Lady Beatrice, guarding her family's legacy. Roland, resentful of debts. Clara, hiding her fear. Langston, too curious about the manor's past. Each had a motive, each a secret. The whispering chimney was their chorus, and Poirot would make it reveal the truth. Chapter 5. The Cryptic Correspondence. The gloom of Ashwood Manor seemed to deepen with each passing day, as if the stones themselves mourned the death of Clarence Whitby. Hercule Poirot, however, was undeterred, his little grey cells humming with purpose. The locked-room murder, the whispering chimney, the missing journal, all pointed to a design more intricate than a mere crime of passion. As the morning light filtered through the library's stained-glass windows, Poirot resolved to search Whitby's belongings, certain that the solicitor had left behind a clue to his fate. With Lady Beatrice's reluctant permission, Poirot entered Whitby's room, now a silent shrine to the tragedy. The constable had removed the body, but the room remained untouched, its air heavy with the scent of old paper and extinguished candles. Poirot's gloved hands moved methodically, examining the desk, the wardrobe, the neatly packed valise. Beneath a stack of legal documents, he found it, a small, folded letter, its wax seal broken, hidden inside a hollowed-out book. The book's title, The Order of the Saffron Veil, sent a thrill through Poirot. A secret society, perhaps. He unfolded the letter, its ink faded but legible. It read, "Brother Clarence, the chimney's truth must remain buried. The order's work is not yet done. Beware the seeker of relics. He treads too close. Meet me at the hearth at midnight." The signature was a single initial. E. Poirot's eyes gleamed. E. Edmund? Eleanor? Or another? The reference to the seeker of relics pointed to Dr. Langston, the archaeologist whose excavations had unsettled the household. Poirot tucked the letter into his pocket, his mind racing. A secret society, a hidden truth, a meeting at the hearth. Whitby's death was no random act. He made his way to the library, where Mrs. Poole, the librarian, was cataloguing manuscripts. "Madame Poole," he said, his tone genial but probing, "this order of the Saffron Veil, does it appear in the manor's records?" Mrs. Poole Sept's hands froze, her eyes widening. "The order? It's Sept's a legend, monsieur. A group of scholars, they said, centuries ago, guarding some secret in the manor. I thought it was nonsense. Old stories to scare children." Poirot Sept's moustache twitched. "Nonsense, madame. The truth often hides behind such tales. Have you records of this order?" She hesitated, then retrieved a slim volume from a locked cabinet. "This mentions them briefly. A diary from 1802. It says the order used the Manor Seft's chimney as a meeting place, hiding messages in its flues." Poirot scanned the diary, noting references to saffron-robed figures and the chimney's voice. The pieces were aligning a society, a chimney engineered for secrecy, a murder to protect its legacy. But what was the truth the letter spoke of? And why had Whitby been targeted? He sought out Dr. Langston, finding him in the study, examining a map of the estate. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot began, "your work here, it involves the Manor Sept's history, oui? Have you uncovered relics tied to an Order of the Saffron Veil?" Langston Septson's pencil paused, his jovial mask slipping. "The order? I've heard rumors, old tales of a cult. My excavations found a few trinkets, saffron-dyed cloth, a carved stone. Nothing significant. Why do you ask? Poirot Sift's eyes narrowed. A letter suggests you are a seeker of relics, such one who treads too close. Monsieur Whitby was warned of you. Langston laughed, but it was strained. Me? I'm just digging up pottery. Whitby was paranoid, always muttering about secrets. He asked me about the chimney Sift's design. Said it was set alive. Setter, I thought he was mad. Poirot nodded, unconvinced. Langston's nonchalance was too practiced, his knowledge of the chimney too precise. He thanked the archaeologist and moved to the drawing-room where Lady Beatrice and Roland were in heated discussion. Their voices hushed as Poirot entered. "Madame, Monsieur," Poirot said, "a letter has come to light, mentioning an order tied to this manor. What do you know of it?" Lady Beatrice Sift's face paled. "The Order of the Saffron Veil. It's a myth, Monsieur Poirot. My grandfather spoke of it, a group of eccentrics, nothing more." Roland snorted. "Ghost stories, Aunt Beatrice. You don't believe this nonsense, do you, Poirot?" Poirot Sipta's smile was enigmatic. "I believe in facts, monsieur, and the fact is, Monsieur Whitby died, after receiving a warning from the Sipmouth. Perhaps you too have received such a letter." Roland Thirt's eyes flashed. "I've no time for riddles, if you are accusing me." Non, Poirot interjected. "I accuse no one yet, but secrets they fester. Nistas pas." The conversation was interrupted by Clara Dunley, who entered, her face drawn. "Monsieur Poirot, I must speak with you." Her voice trembled, and she glanced nervously at Lady Beatrice and Roland. "Alone, mademoiselle?" Poirot asked gently. She nodded, and they stepped into the corridor. Clara's words came in a rush. "I found something in the nursery, a scrap of paper hidden in Emily's toy chest. It had the same seal as the letter you described. It said, 'The chimney guards the truth.' I don't know what it means, but I'm frightened." Poirot Sipt's heart quickened. "Merci, mademoiselle. This is most helpful. Where is this paper now?" "I burned it," she whispered. "I was afraid. Emily, she Set's just a child. I didn't want her involved." Poirot Sipt's gaze softened, but his mind was sharp. "You did well to tell me, mademoiselle. Fear not. I shall protect the truth. And you?" That night, the whispering returned, louder and more insistent, a chorus of murmurs that seemed to pulse through the manor. Poirot stood in the chimney room, listening intently. The sound was not random. It had rhythm, a cadence, as if designed to convey meaning. He tapped the hearth, noting the hollow echo again, a hidden flue perhaps, amplifying a human voice, or a device, cunningly placed. As he pondered, a shadow moved in the corridor. Poirot spun, his hand on his cane, but it was only Molly carrying a candle. "Monsieur," she whispered, "I saw someone near the chimney earlier, cloaked, moving quickly. I couldn't see who." Poirot Sipt's eyes gleamed. "Courage, mademoiselle. You have given me another piece of the puzzle." Retiring to his room, Poirot added to his notebook, "The Order of the Saffron Veil, real, not myth. Whitby's letter, Clara's scrap, the chimney's design, all connected. Who is E, and what truth does the chimney guard?" The manor was a web of secrets, and Poirot was determined to trace every strand. The whispering chimney was speaking, and he would make it confess. Chapter 6. Echoes from the Ashes. The morning mist clung to Ashwood Manor like a shroud, softening the edges of its ancient stones but doing little to ease the growing unease within. Hercule Poirot stood before the east wing's fireplace, his gloved fingers tracing the faint hollow sound he had noted earlier. The whispering chimney, the cryptic letter, the Order of the Saffron Veil, these were not mere fragments, but pieces of a grander design. Clarence Whitby's murder had raised the stakes, and Poirot was determined to uncover the chimney's secrets before another tragedy struck. He sought out Dr. Frederick Langston, the archaeologist, whose knowledge of the manor's structure might prove invaluable. Poirot found him in the courtyard, examining a weathered stone carving unearthed near the stables. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot began. his tone cordial but firm. "You have studied the manor's architecture, I require your expertise to explore the chimney in the east wing." Langston Dawes' eyebrows rose, his usual joviality tempered by caution. "The chimney? It's subs old, certainly, but I sub no engineer. What do you hope to find?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The truth, monsieur. The chimney speaks, and I suspect it hides more than sound. Will you assist me?" Reluctantly, Langston agreed, and the two men entered the chimney room, armed with a lantern and a set of tools borrowed from Grayson. The fireplace, its hearth blackened by years of use, seemed to watch them. Poirot tapped the stones again, his ear pressed close, until a distinct hollow echo confirmed his suspicion. Langston, skeptical but intrigued, pried at the stone with a crowbar. After a moment's resistance, it shifted, revealing a narrow passage behind the hearth, barely wide enough for a man. Dust swirled in the lantern's beam, and a faint draught carried the scent of ash. "Remarkable," Langston said, his voice tinged with unease. "This isn't on any blueprint I've seen." Poirot sits, mustache twitched. "The manor keeps its secrets well. Nos tests pass. Let us see where this leads." The passage descended steeply, its walls rough-hewn and damp. Cobwebs clung to Poirot's coat, but he pressed on, his cane tapping the stone floor. Langston followed, muttering about medieval construction. At the passage's end they found a small chamber, its walls etched with faint symbols, saffron-colored veils, intertwined with what appeared to be a flame. A rusted iron box sat in one corner, its lid engraved with the initials E.H.
"Eleanor Harrow?"
Langston wondered aloud. "The heiress who died in the fire. Or perhaps Edmund Harrow," Poirot replied, his mind racing. He opened the box, revealing a bundle of yellowed papers and a small, tarnished medallion bearing the same veil and flame symbol. The papers were letters, written in a spidery hand, detailing meetings of the Order of the Saffron Veil. One passage caught Poirot's eye. "The chimney guards our legacy," its voice a warning to those who seek the flame's truth. Poirot's heart quickened. The Order was no myth, and the chimney was its sentinel. But what was the flame's truth? He pocketed the medallion, intending to study the letters later, and led Langston back to the chimney room. As they emerged, a loud crash echoed from above, followed by a scream. Rushing upstairs, Poirot found the household gathered in the east wing corridor. A heavy chandelier lay shattered on the floor, its crystals scattered like frozen tears. Clara Dunley stood nearby, her face pale, her hands clutching Emily, who sobbed softly. "It fell," Clara stammered. "We were walking beneath it. It just fell." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The chandelier chain, still dangling from the ceiling, was cleanly cut, not frayed. This was no accident, he declared, his voice sharp. Someone wished harm to Mademoiselle Dunley or the child. Lady Beatrice, arriving breathless, gasped. "But who would do such a thing? This is madness." Roland, his face flushed, muttered, "It sets this cursed house. First Whitby, now this." Poirot ignored the outburst, examining the chain. The cut was precise, likely made with a blade. "Madam," he said to Lady Beatrice, who was in this corridor before the incident. "No one," she replied, then hesitated. "Well, Roland passed through earlier, and Dr. Langston was with you. The servants were in the kitchens." Poirot turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, you are certain you saw no one?" Clara Spurt's eyes flickered with fear. I thought I heard footsteps, but I was focused on Emily." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing the incident. A near-fatal accident, so soon after Whitby's murder, suggested a desperate hand at work. The chimney's secrets were stirring panic, and someone sought to silence those who came too close. That evening, Poirot gathered the household in the drawing-room, the medallion in his pocket a silent witness. "Mes amis," he began, "today we have uncovered a hidden passage and a relic of the Order of the Saffron Veil. This manor hides a legacy, one that Monsieur Whitby died for, and one that nearly claimed another life today. I ask you, who among you knows of this order?" "Lady Beatrice insists," Hands trembled. Monsieur Poirot, I told you, it sests a myth. My family has no connection to such things. Roland scoffed. This is absurd. You sit her chasing ghosts, Poirot. Clara remained silent, her eyes fixed on the floor, while Langston shifted uncomfortably. Instead found artifacts. Yes, but nothing to suggest a living order. Perhaps Whitby stumbled on something valuable. Poirot Sip's gaze was piercing. Valuable, monsieur, or dangerous. The chandelier did not fall by chance. Someone in this room fears the truth. The whispering began again, a low, insistent murmur from the east wing. The household froze, faces pale in the candlelight. Emily clung to Clara, whimpering. It's the ghost lady. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The sound was no ghost, but a tool, perhaps to frighten, perhaps to conceal. He excused himself, returning to the chimney room. The passage's discovery had shifted the game, and the chandelier's fall was a warning. Kneeling by the hearth, he examined the burn mark again, noting its proximity to the hidden panel. A faint residue, like ash but finer, dusted the stone. He collected a sample in a handkerchief, suspecting it was no ordinary soot. As he rose, a memory stirred, a passage from the diary Mrs. Poole had shown him, mentioning the chimney's fire as a signal for the order. Was the burn mark a modern echo of that signal, and the chandelier had it been meant for Clara, Emily, or someone else? In his room, Poirot added to his notebook, the order lives, its secrets tied to the chimney. The passage, the medallion, the cut chain. Someone guards the flame's truth. But who? And why now? The echoes of 1873 were growing louder, and Poirot knew the next move would be critical. The whispering chimney was no longer a mystery. It was a battlefield. Chapter 7. The Mask of Innocence. The dining room of Ashwood Manor gleamed under the flicker of candlelight, its polished table a stage for the drama unfolding among its occupants. Hercule Poirot, seated at Lady Beatrice Harrow's right, observed the gathered household with the precision of a watchmaker. The discovery of the hidden passage, the medallion of the Order of the Saffron Veil, and the near-fatal chandelier incident had tightened the web of suspicion. Tonight Poirot intended to pull at its threads, using the art of conversation to unmask the guilty. The whispering chimney, ever present, seemed to hum with anticipation, its murmurs a silent chorus to the evening's tension. Lady Beatrice, at the head of the table, maintained a brittle facade of hospitality, though her eyes betrayed her unease. Roland Harrow, opposite Poirot, cut his meat with unnecessary force. His jaw set. Clara Dunley, pale and withdrawn, kept her gaze on young Emily, who sat quietly, clutching a doll. Dr. Frederick Langston, ever the raconteur, attempted to lighten the mood with tales of his digs, but his laughter rang hollow. The empty chair where Clarence Whitby once sat loomed like a ghost, a reminder of the manor's deadly secrets. Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet. Mes amis, we dine in the shadow of tragedy, yet the truth is near. The chimney speaks, oui, but it is not the voice of the dead. It is a living hand that makes it whisper, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall find it. Lady Beatrice Sips's fork clattered against her plate. Monsieur Poirot, must we discuss this now? It Sips's distressing for Emily. Poirot Stitt's eyes softened, but his resolve was iron. Madame, the child is safer with the truth than with secrets. Let us speak plainly. Mademoiselle Dunley, you have been most quiet. The chandelier, its fall, was no accident. Did you see anyone near the corridor before it fell? Clara Sip's hands trembled, her voice barely audible. No, monsieur. I was with Emily. I saw nothing. Poirot leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Vraiment? Yet you heard footsteps, you said, and the scrap of paper in Emily Sept's toy chest with the seal of the order. Why did you burn it? The room stilled, all eyes on Clara. Her face flushed, and she stammered. I was frightened. I didn't want Emily involved in this madness. Roland slammed his hand on the table. What paper? Clara, what are you hiding? Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. Monsieur Harrow, patience. Mademoiselle Dunley, You are not a stranger to this manor, are you? Your manner, your fear, it suggests a deeper connection. Clara Sitt's eyes filled with tears, and she clutched Emily Sepp's hand. I didn't want to say, but yes, I was born here. My mother was a maid at Ashwood Manor, years ago. She told me stories of the order, of the Chimney Sepp's whispers. She said they were dangerous, that they guarded something terrible. Lady Beatrice gasped. Clara, why did you never tell me? I was ashamed, Clara whispered. My mother left under a cloud, accused of theft, though she was innocent. I came back as governess to start anew, but then the whispering started, and I feared it was connected. Poirot Simpson's mustache twitched. Interessant. Your mother, she spoke of the Order of the Saffron Veil. Clara nodded. She said they met in secret, using the chimney to send signals. She overheard them once, talking of a Thev Slim's truth. She never knew what it meant. Poirot Sitt's mind raced. Clara Sitt's revelation tied her to the Manor Sepp's past, to the fire of 1873, perhaps to Eleanor Harrow herself. Was her fear genuine, or a mask for guilt? He turned to Langston. Monsieur, you have unearthed relics of this order. Did you find anything tied to this sea, flame Sitt's, truth Sitt's? Langston shifted, his joviality fading. Just fragments, cloth, carvings, nothing about a flame. But Whitby was obsessed with the Chimney Sepp's design. He thought it was a vault hiding something valuable. Roland snorted. Valuable? This house is drowning in debt. If there was treasure, we sit to found it. Poirot Sipp's eyes gleamed. Treasure, monsieur, is not always gold. It can be knowledge, power, or a secret worth killing for. As the meal progressed, the whispering grew louder, a sibilant chorus that seemed to pulse through the walls. Emily whimpered, burying her face in Clara Sitt's lap. Lady Beatrice stood, her voice sharp. This is intolerable. Monsieur Poirot, you must stop this sound. It's Sepp's driving us mad. Poirot rose, his presence commanding. Madame. The sound is no ghost, but a tool. Let us confront it together. To the chimney room. S'il vous plaît. Reluctantly, the household followed, their footsteps echoing in the dimly lit corridor. The chimney room was cold, its hearth a silent witness to their fears. The whispering was deafening now, a rhythmic chant that seemed to mock their presence. Poirot knelt by the hearth, his fingers tracing the burn mark. Listen, he said. It is not random. It has purpose, a signal perhaps, as Mademoiselle Dunley's mother described. Roland Sitt's voice was taut. A signal for what? This is nonsense. Poirot Sitt's gaze was unrelenting. Nonsense, monsieur? Then why does it frighten you? Why do you avoid this room at night? Roland flushed, but before he could retort, Clara cried out, Stop it, all of you! The whispering, it said's not just a sound. It said's a warning. My mother said the order punished those who betrayed their secrets. Langston laughed nervously. A warning? It sounds just acoustics, Miss Dunley. Old houses play tricks. Poirot turned to him. Non, monsieur. This is no trick of stone. It is a design, crafted with intent, and someone here knows its purpose. The group fell silent, their faces a gallery of fear and suspicion. Emily tugged at Clara Sipp's sleeve, whispering, Is the ghost lady angry? Poirot knelt beside her, his voice gentle. Petite, there is no ghost, only people, with their fears and secrets. You are safe with Poirot. As they returned to the drawing-room, Poirot lingered, his mind cataloguing the evening's revelations. Clara's past, the order's signals, the escalating whispers, all pointed to a truth buried deep within the manor. The chandelier's fall, Whitby's murder, the hidden passage, they were acts in a play directed by a cunning hand. In his room, Poirot added to his notebook. Clara's mother, a witness to the order. The whispering, a signal revived. The killer fears exposure, but who wears the mask of innocence? The chimney's voice was growing clearer, and Poirot was determined to make it name its master. Chapter 8. The Phantom Sect's Gambit. The atmosphere in Ashwood Manor had grown as taut as a violin string, each whisper from the chimney tightening the strain. Hercule Poirot, his little grey cells ablaze, stood in the east wing corridor, the memory of Clara Dunley's revelation still fresh. Her mother's connection to the Order of the Saffron Veil, the hidden passage, the medallion, all were pieces of a puzzle that pointed to a living conspiracy. Yet the murder of Clarence Whitby and the near-fatal chandelier incident suggested a desperate hand, one that would stop at nothing to guard the chimney's secrets. Tonight, Poirot resolved to provoke that hand into revealing itself. As dusk settled, the household gathered in the drawing-room, their faces etched with fatigue and fear. Lady Beatrice, her composure fraying, clutched a handkerchief. Roland Harrow paced, his temper barely contained. Clara Dunley sat close to young Emily, her eyes darting to the shadows. Frederick Langston, his usual joviality subdued, sipped brandy, while Grayson, the butler, stood silently by the door. The whispering had grown erratic, its murmurs rising and falling like a tide, unsettling all who heard it. Poirot, ever observant, broke the silence. "Mes amis, the chimney speaks, but it is no ghost. It is a tool, manipulated by a human hand. Tonight I propose we watch and listen together. Let us see who moves when the whispers call." Roland snorted. "You start chasing shadows, Poirot. This house is old, nothing more." Poirot's sists' eyes gleamed. "Shadows, monsieur. None. Shadows do not cut chandeliers or lock doors. Someone plays a game, and I shall end it." Before anyone could respond, a scream pierced the air, sharp and chilling. It came from the east wing, where Molly the maid stood frozen, her candle trembling in her hand. "A ghost!" she cried, pointing toward the chimney room. "I saw it, a figure in a cloak, glowing by the hearth." The household rushed to the corridor, Poirot leading the way. In the dim light, a faint ethereal glow flickered near the chimney room's entrance, accompanied by a low, sibilant whisper. Emily clung to Clara, whimpering. "The ghost lady," Lady Beatrice gasped, and even Roland's bravado faltered. Langston muttered about tricks of light, but his voice lacked conviction. Poirot, undaunted, approached the glow, his cane tapping the floor. "Mon Dieu, this is no phantom," he declared. "It is a performance staged to frighten. Observe." He swept his lantern across the doorway, revealing a thin wire trailing from the hearth to the corridor. The glow faded, and the whispering softened as if cowed by his presence. "A wire?" Lady Beatrice whispered. "But how?" Poirot knelt, examining the wire. It was coated with a faint, luminescent powder, likely applied to create the ghostly effect. The wire led to the chimney's base, where a small device, a crude bellows, was hidden behind a loose stone. When activated, it pushed air through the flues, amplifying the whispering sound. "Voilà," Poirot said, "a mechanism, not a spirit. Someone has engineered this spectacle." Roland Thet's voice was sharp. "Who would do this, and why?" Poirot's sixth gaze swept the group. "To distract, monsieur, to keep us from the truth. The Order of the Saffron Veil hides something, and this, the dozed sits, ensures we look elsewhere." Determined to catch the culprit, Poirot devised a trap. "Tonight," he announced, "I shall remain in the chimney room, alone. If the phantom returns, I shall greet it. Monsieur Grayson, ensure all doors are locked, and no one enters the east wing without my knowledge." Grayson nodded, his face impassive. The household dispersed, their unease palpable. Poirot spent the evening preparing, placing a small mirror near the hearth to reflect any movement and dusting the floor with talc to capture footprints. He sat in the darkness, his senses alert, the medallion of the Order in his pocket, a silent reminder of the stakes. Hours passed, the manor silent, save for the occasional creak. Then, at midnight, the whispering began again, softer but deliberate. A shadow flickered in the mirror, a cloaked figure, moving swiftly toward the hearth. Poirot sprang up, his voice sharp. "Arrêtez! Show yourself!" The figure froze, then fled, but not before knocking over a chair. Poirot gave chase, his lantern illuminating the corridor. The figure vanished into the passage behind the hearth, but Poirot, anticipating this, had left a thread across the entrance. It was broken, confirming the route. He returned to the chimney room, examining the floor. The talc revealed footprints, large, heavy, like those Molly had described. They matched no one's shoes precisely, suggesting a deliberate disguise. By morning, Poirot gathered the household, his demeanor calm but commanding. Mes amis, the phantom is no ghost, but a living soul. I have proof. A wire, a bellows, footprints. Someone among us plays a dangerous game. Clara sits. Voice trembled. But who, Monsieur Poirot, and why frighten us? Poirot's eyes narrowed. To divert attention, mademoiselle. The chimney hides a secret, perhaps the seat flame sits truth set, your mother spoke of. The killer fears its discovery. Langston shifted uncomfortably. This is madness. I found nothing in my digs to suggest a treasure or secret. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Vraiment? Yet you know the chimney sip's design, monsieur. And you, Monsieur Roland, avoid this room. Why? Roland Sett's face reddened. I had enough of your accusations, Poirot. Lady Beatrice intervened. Enough, Monsieur Poirot. You must find the truth before we all lose our minds. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing the night's events. The bellows, the luminescent powder, the footprints, they pointed to a calculated effort to maintain the illusion of a curse. The Order's legacy was at stake, and the killer was growing bold. He returned to the chimney room, examining the bellows closely. A faint residue, like the ash he'd found before, clung to its edges. Chemical, perhaps. He would send it to a laboratory, but for now it confirmed his suspicion. The whispering was mechanical, a tool to manipulate. In his room, Poirot added to his notebook, the phantom is a ruse, the chimney a stage. The footprints disguised, but human. The Order's secret is close, and the killer grows reckless. The gambit had failed, but the game was far from over. The whispering chimney was a siren, luring Poirot to the truth, and he would follow its call. Chapter 9. Secrets in the Stone. The air in Ashwood Manor was thick with foreboding, as if the very stones of the ancient house conspired to guard their secrets. Hercule Poirot stood in the chimney room, the memory of the previous night's phantom gambit sharp in his mind. The cloaked figure, the luminescent wire, the mechanical bellows, all confirmed that the whispering chimney was no supernatural phenomenon but a tool wielded by a cunning hand. The Order of the Saffron Veil was real, its legacy tied to the hidden passage, and Poirot was determined to uncover its truth before the killer struck again. He enlisted Roland Harrow, whose restless energy and knowledge of the manor made him a reluctant but necessary ally. Monsieur Harrow, Poirot said, his tone firm, you know this house better than most, the passage behind the hearth. We must explore it further. Will you assist me? Roland Thith's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with suspicion. Why me, Poirot? You think I set involved, donned Thithu. Poirot's moustache twitched. Non, monsieur. I think you wish to clear your name. A man with nothing to hide fears no truth. Ne sais pas. Grudgingly Roland agreed, and the two men entered the passage, armed with a lantern and a crowbar. The narrow tunnel descended deeper than before, its walls etched with more symbols of the Order, saffron veils entwined with flames. The air grew colder, the scent of ash stronger. At a turn they found a small alcove, its floor littered with fragments of pottery and a carved stone tablet. The tablet bore an inscription, "The flame's truth lies beneath the hearth." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Voilà, monsieur! The chimney is not merely a conduit, it is a vault. Roland frowned, brushing dust from the tablet. A vault? For what? There sips nothing here but old junk. Poirot knelt, examining the pottery. One shard was painted with a saffron veil, another with a flame. These are not junk, monsieur. They are relics of the Order, perhaps a key to their purpose. The set flame sept's truth set. It is what Whitby sought, and what cost him his life. As they prepared to leave, Roland stumbled, dislodging a loose stone. Beneath it lay a small sealed vial, its contents a faint amber liquid. Poirot's heart quickened. "Careful, monsieur, this may be dangerous." He pocketed the vial, suspecting it was no mere artifact, but a clue to the murders. They emerged to find the household in chaos. A scream had drawn Lady Beatrice, Clara Dunley and Dr. Langston to the dining room, where Grayson, the butler, lay crumpled on the floor, his face contorted in agony. A glass of wine, spilled beside him, emitted a faint, bitter odor. Poirot knelt, checking for a pulse, but found none. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "Another death. Poison, I suspect." Lady Beatrice clutched her chest, her voice trembling. "Poison? But how? Grayson was with us all morning." Clara, holding Emily tightly, whispered, "He poured the wine himself. I saw him." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And who was near the wine before he poured it?" Langston, pale, raised his hands. "Not me, Poirot. I was in the study until lunch." Roland Sett's face was ashen. "This is madness. First Whitby, now Grayson. Who sets next?" Poirot examined the glass, noting the residue on its rim. The odor was unmistakable. Bitter almonds, a hallmark of cyanide. "The poison was swift," he said. Grayson was targeted, perhaps because he knew too much. He spoke of Whitby Sept's unease, of someone watching him. Lady Beatrice Sesting's eyes filled with tears. "Grayson was loyal. He served my family for decades. Why would anyone do this?" Poirot's voice was calm, but resolute. "To silence, madame. The Order Sept's secret is a flame that burns those who come too close, but I, Hercule Poirot, shall not be burned." He questioned the household, their answers laced with fear. Clara admitted to seeing Grayson in the cellar fetching the wine, but no one else was there. Langston claimed he'd been studying maps, though his hands trembled as he spoke. Lady Beatrice, distraught, said she'd been in her room writing letters. Roland, defensive, insisted he'd been in the billiard room, alone. Yet Poirot noted a discrepancy. Roland's shoes bore traces of dust similar to that in the passage. Returning to the chimney room, Poirot analyzed the vial from the alcove. Its amber liquid was odorless, but its seal matched the wax on Whitby's letter. Was it a poison, a ritual substance, or something else? He sent a sample to Dr. Morton, the village physician, for analysis, suspecting it was linked to Grayson's death. That evening, the whispering grew frantic, a cacophony of murmurs that seemed to echo the household's panic. Poirot gathered them in the drawing-room, the medallion and tablet on the table before him. "Mes amis," he began, "the Order of the Saffron Veil is no myth. Its relics lie beneath this house, and its secrets have claimed 2 lives. The vial, the tablet, the whispers, they point to a truth someone kills to protect." Clara said's voice was faint. "My mother warned me," she said. "The Order punished betrayal. Grayson, he must have known something." Langston Fert's laugh was nervous. "This is absurd, Poirot. You're saying a centuries-old cult is poisoning people." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Non, monsieur. I say a living hand uses the Order Sept's legacy. The poison, the phantom, the chandelier, all are acts of one who fears exposure." Roland Sip's fists clenched. "You serve pointing fingers, Poirot, but you serve got no proof." Poirot Sip's smile was enigmatic. "Proof, monsieur? It is in the stones, in the dust on your shoes, in the whispers that betray the guilty." The room fell silent, the whispering chimney filling the void. Emily, clinging to Clara, whispered, "Is the ghost lady angry with us?" Poirot knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "Petite, the ghost is but a shadow. The truth is what we seek, and it is near." In his room, Poirot added to his notebook, "The vial, the poison, the tablet, clues to the Order's purpose. Grayson's death silences a witness. Roland's dust, Langston's nerves, Clara's fear, who hides behind the veil. The chimney's secrets were in the stone, and Poirot was determined to unearth them before the flame claimed another life. Chapter 10. The Tangled Web. The shadows in Ashwood Manor seemed to grow longer with each passing day, as if the house itself conspired to obscure the truth. Hercule Poirot sat in the library, the medallion of the Order of the Saffron Veil glinting in his hand, its saffron veil and flame symbol a silent challenge. The murders of Clarence Whitby and Grayson, the hidden passage, the poisoned vial, the staged phantom, all pointed to a web of motives woven through the manor's history. Greed, revenge, a hidden inheritance, these were the threads, and Poirot was determined to untangle them before the killer struck again. He began the day with Lady Beatrice, finding her in the morning room, her face pale against the backdrop of a fading tapestry. "Madame," Poirot said, his voice calm but piercing, "you have been less than candid. The Order of the Saffron Veil is no myth, and I believe you know more than you admit. Speak, s'il vous plaît." Lady Beatrice's hands trembled, her eyes avoiding his. "Monsieur Poirot, I have told you all I know. The Order is a story, nothing more." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Non, madame. The medallion, the tablet, the letters, they are real. Your cousin, Sir Edmund, sought their secrets, as did Monsieur Whitby. Grayson, too, knew something, and now he is dead. What do you conceal?" Her composure cracked, a tear tracing her cheek. I knew Edmund was curious about the Order. He found papers in the library, old records. He believed they hid something valuable, an inheritance perhaps tied to the chimney. He wouldn't tell me more, said it was too dangerous. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "An inheritance, madame, and who would benefit?" Lady Beatrice hesitated. Roland as heir, but there were others, creditors, distant relatives. Edmund hinted at a legacy beyond money, something the Order guarded. Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing her words. An inheritance, not of gold, but of secrets, protected by murder. He sought Roland next, finding him in the garden, staring at the manor's looming chimney. "Monsieur Harrow," Poirot said, "your aunt speaks of an inheritance, one tied to the Order. Did you know of this?" Roland's face darkened. She kept grasping at straws. Edmund was obsessed with old stories, said the chimney hid something valuable. I thought he was mad. If there's an inheritance, I've seen no sign of it, just debts. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet, monsieur, your shoes bore dust from the hidden passage. Were you seeking this legacy?" Roland's fists clenched. "I explored the passage once out of curiosity. I found nothing but cobwebs. Accuse me if you like, Poirot, but I sept no killer." Poirot smiled enigmatically. "Vraiment? Then why does the chimney frighten you?" Roland turned away, silent, and Poirot noted his unease. The web was tightening, but the spider remained hidden. He next approached Clara Dunley, who was in the nursery with Emily, reading a story. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "your mother spoke of the Order's punishment. Did she mention an inheritance?" Clarice's hands stilled, her voice low. "She said the Order guarded something precious, hidden in the manor. She thought it was why she was framed for theft, to keep her silent. I didn't believe her until the whispering started." Poirot's heart quickened. "And Monsieur Whitby, did he seek this secret?" Clara nodded. "He asked me about my mother, about what she knew. I told him nothing. I was afraid." Poirot thanked her. His mind weaving connections. Greed for an inheritance, revenge for past wrongs, secrets of the Order, each motive intertwined. Dr. Langston, the last piece, was in the study, poring over maps. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, "you have dug for relics, but have you sought the flame's truth the Order guards?" Langston Sal's smile was strained. "I been an archaeologist, Poirot. Not a treasure hunter. I found trinkets. Nothing more. Whitby thought the chimney was a vault, but I saw no proof." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Yet you know its design, monsieur, and you were near the cellar when Grayson was poisoned." Langston paled. "You can think I—" "Non," Poirot interrupted. "I think only of the truth." That evening the household gathered for dinner, their faces a gallery of fear and suspicion. The whispering which had haunted their nights was strangely silent, a void that felt more ominous than its presence. Poirot observed their reactions. Lady Beatrice's trembling hands, Roland's clenched jaw, Clara's haunted eyes, Langston's forced calm. The silence was no accident. It signaled a shift, a killer adapting their plan. After dinner, Poirot returned to the chimney room, the absence of whispers amplifying his senses. He examined the hearth, noting the burn mark and the bellows from the phantom's ruse. A faint residue, like that on the vial, clung to the stone, a chemical, perhaps, used to create the whispers or the poison. He collected another sample, his suspicion growing that the order's flame was not merely symbolic. As he stood, a noise, a faint creak, came from the passage. Drawing his lantern, Poirot entered. His cane ready, the alcove was empty, but a new mark scarred the tablet, a scratched flame, fresh and deliberate. A warning or a taunt. The killer was close, their moves bolder yet more desperate. Returning to the drawing-room, Poirot addressed the household. Mes amis, the whispering has stopped, but the danger has not. The order sipped secret, an inheritance, a truth drives these murders. Someone among us knows its hiding place, and they kill to protect it. Lady Beatrice's sister's voice was sharp. Monsieur Poirot, you push too far. We are victims, not culprits. Poirot's smile was grim. Victims, madame, or players in a tangled web. The chimney is silent, but it will speak again, and I shall be listening. In his room, Poirot added to his notebook, greed, revenge, inheritance. The motives converge. The silence is a tactic, the killer's plan shifting. Lady Beatrice hides knowledge, Roland conceals his steps, Clara fears her past, Langston knows too much. The truth lies beneath the hearth. The web was unraveling, and Poirot was ready to confront its weaver. Chapter 11. The Final Whisper. The silence of the whispering chimney hung over Ashwood Manor like a held breath, its absence more unnerving than its murmurs. Hercule Poirot, his little grey cells alight with purpose, stood in the library, the medallion of the Order of the Saffron Veil in his hand. The murders of Clarence Whitby and Grayson, the hidden passage, the poisoned vial, the staged phantom, all pointed to a killer, desperate to protect a secret tied to the manor's past. The motives of greed, revenge, and a hidden inheritance had woven a tangled web, and Poirot was determined to cut through it with a final daring stroke. He gathered the household in the drawing-room, his demeanour calm but commanding. Lady Beatrice Harrow, her face pale, sat rigidly. Roland Harrow, restless and defiant, leaned against the mantel. Clara Dunley, clutching young Emily, avoided his gaze. Frederick Langston, his jovial mask slipping, sipped nervously at a glass of water. The air was thick with suspicion, each glance a silent accusation. Poirot's eyes gleamed, for he knew the killer was among them, and tonight he would force their hand. Mes amis. Poirot began, his voice resonating in the stillness. The chimney has fallen silent, but its secrets scream for release. The Order of the Saffron Veil guards a truth, a flame's truth, that has claimed 2 lives. Tonight we shall confront this truth in the chimney room. I invite you all to join me, for the killer will not resist the bait. Lady Beatrice Sire's voice trembled. Monsieur Poirot, this is reckless. What do you hope to achieve? The Poirot's mustache twitched. The truth, madam. A murderer thrives in shadows, but light reveals all. Will you come? Reluctantly, the household agreed, following Poirot to the east wing. The chimney room was cold, its hearth a dark moor in the lantern's glow. Poirot had prepared the scene with care. The bellows from the phantom's ruse were placed prominently, the tablet from the passage rested on a table, and a faint dusting of talc covered the floor to capture footprints. He stood by the hearth, his cane tapping rhythmically, mimicking the whisper's cadence. Listen, he said. The chimney is silent, but it can be made to speak. I have learned its mechanism, a flue designed to amplify sound used by the Order to send signals. Tonight I shall activate it, and we shall see who responds. He pressed a hidden lever near the hearth, discovered during his earlier explorations. A low hum began, growing into the familiar sibilant whisper, eerie and deliberate. The household gasped. Emily clinging to Clara, Roland's fists clenching. Poirot watched their faces, his eyes sharp. "The sound is no ghost," he declared, "but a tool. Someone here knows its secret, and they will betray themselves." As the whispers grew louder, a shadow moved in the corridor. Poirot's heart quickened, but he continued, his voice steady. "The order hid an inheritance, a document perhaps, or a relic of immense value. Monsieur Whitby found it, and Grayson knew too much. The killer silenced them, but the chimney betrays their guilt." A sudden crash interrupted him. A stone dislodged from the hearth, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a sealed parchment, its wax bearing the order's seal. Poirot reached for it, but Clara cried out, "No, monsieur, it's dangerous." Her voice was frantic, her eyes wide with fear or guilt. Before Poirot could respond, Roland lunged forward, snatching the parchment. "Enough of this, Poirot. If there's a legacy, it's mine." His face was flushed, his hands trembling as he tore open the seal. The document revealed a map, marking a chamber beneath the manor, labeled the Flames Vault. Poirot's voice was sharp. "Monsieur Harrow, you move too quickly. Why such haste?" Roland Sepp's eyes darted to Clara, then away. "I stim tired of secrets. If there's something here, I want it." Clara's voice broke. "Roland, you promised." Her words hung in the air, a confession of complicity. The household turned to her, stunned. Poirot Sepp's gaze was unrelenting. "Mademoiselle Dunley, you and Monsieur Harrow share a secret. You knew of the vault, of the Order Sepp's legacy. Was it you who cut the chandelier, who staged the phantom?" Clara sobbed, collapsing into a chair. "I didn't kill anyone, Roland. He said we could find the vault, clear the debts. My mother told me about it. She was part of the Order before they betrayed her. I told Roland, but I didn't know it would lead to murder." Roland Sepp's face twisted. "You start lying, Clara. You wanted the money as much as I did." Lady Beatrice gasped. "Roland, how could you? And Clara, my governess, part of this?" Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Silence. The vault is the key, but the killer is not yet named. The whispers, the poison, the locked room, they point to a mind more cunning than greed alone." As he spoke, the whispers ceased abruptly and a faint click echoed from the passage. Poirot spun, his lantern illuminating Dr. Langston, his hand on the hidden panel. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, his voice cold, "you move in the shadows. Why?" Torsten Spix's smile was gone, his eyes wild. "I was checking the mechanism. You said it was a flu." Poirot's smile was grim. "Non, monsieur. You sought the vault, as you sought its secrets from the start. Your excavations, your questions to Whitby. You knew of the Order Sepp's legacy." The household stared, the truth dawning. Langston Sepp's composure cracked. "You have no proof, Poirot." Poirot Sepp's eyes gleamed. "Proof? The talc on the floor shows your footprints, monsieur, matching those of the phantom. The vial of poison. Your chemical expertise could craft it. You betrayed Whitby, Grayson, and now yourself." Langston bolted for the passage, but Poirot's cane tripped him, and Roland restrained him. The parchment, still in Roland's hand, confirmed the vault's location, a chamber beneath the chimney, hiding a relic of the Order, perhaps a deed or treasure. The whispers had been a signal, revived by Langston to mask his search. In his room, Poirot added to his notebook, "Langston, the seeker of relics, betrayed by his own cunning. Clara and Roland, complicit but not killers. The vault holds the truth, and the chimney's final whisper names its guardian." The web was nearly untangled, and Poirot was ready for the final act. Chapter 12. The Truth Unveiled. The drawing-room of Ashwood Manor was a stage set for revelation, its heavy drapes drawn against the night, the flickering candles casting long shadows across the gathered faces. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his small stature commanding the room with an authority born of intellect. The murders of Clarence Whitby and Grayson, the hidden passage, the poisoned vial, the order of the saffron veil, and the whispering chimney, all had led to this moment. The household sat in tense anticipation, Lady Beatrice Harrow, her composure brittle, Roland Harrow, his defiance masking fear, Clara Dunley clutching young Emily, and Dr. Frederick Langston, restrained by the constable, his eyes darting like a trapped animal. The chimney was silent, but its secrets were about to speak. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "we have lived in the shadow of a mystery, one woven with greed, revenge, and deception. 2 men are dead, a child was endangered, and a phantom haunted us. But there is no phantom, only a murderer. Tonight, Hercule Poirot shall unveil the truth." Lady Beatrice Sitz's voice trembled. "Monsieur Poirot, please, end this nightmare." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Oui, madame. The nightmare ends when the truth is laid bare. Let us begin with the chimney." Its whispers, so eerie, were no curse. They were a mechanism, a flue designed by the Order of the Saffron Veil to amplify signals. A bellows, hidden behind a panel, was activated to create the sound, coated with a chemical to produce the burn marks and the phantom's glow. This was no ghost, but a distraction. He paced, his cane tapping rhythmically. The Order guarded a secret. The flame's truth, a vault beneath the chimney containing a deed to a valuable estate, hidden since 1873 after Eleanor Harrow's death. Sir Edmund discovered this, as did Clarence Whitby, who found the Order's letter. Their curiosity cost them their lives. Roland Sitz's fists clenched. "You cert saying the killer wanted this deed?" Poirot nodded. "Press is eminent, but let us examine the crimes. Monsieur Whitby died in a locked room, with no apparent cause. The autopsy, however, revealed cyanide, administered through a glass of water, laced with a residue matching the vial from the passage. Grayson, too, was poisoned, his wine tainted by the same substance. The chandelier's fall, the phantom, these were diversions to mask the killer's search for the vault." Clara Sept's voice was faint. "But who, Monsieur Poirot? You suspected Dr. Langston." Poirot turned to Langston, whose face was pale. "Monsieur Langston, you are an archaeologist skilled in uncovering secrets. You knew of the Order, its relics, and the chimney's design. Your footprints matched the phantom's, and your chemical knowledge could craft the poison. You sought the deed to sell it, oui?" Langston Sum's voice cracked. "You have no proof, Poirot. I found trinkets, nothing more." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Non, monsieur. The talc on the chimney-room floor betrayed you, as did the residue on your gloves matching the vial. But you are not alone in this web." He turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle Dunley, you knew of the vault through your mother, a former member of the Order. You shared this with Monsieur Roland, hoping to clear the manor's debts." Clara sobbed, nodding. "I didn't want anyone hurt," Roland said. "We find it together." Roland Set's face reddened. "I didn't kill anyone, Poirot. I explored the passage." "Yes, but that's all." Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, monsieur. Your greed led you to the passage, but you lacked the cunning for murder. No, the true killer is one who moved in silence, who used the Order's legacy as a shield." He turned to Lady Beatrice, his gaze unrelenting. "Madam, you have hidden much. You knew of the vault, of Edmund's search, and of the Order's rituals. Why did you not speak?" Lady Beatrice Bess. Hands trembled. I feared the truth would destroy us. Edmund told me of the deed, said it could save the manor. I urged him to stop, but he wouldn't listen." Poirot's voice softened, but his words were sharp. "And when Whitby and Grayson came close, you acted. You, madame, are the guardian of the Order's secret. You poisoned Whitby using your access to his room. You poisoned Grayson, who suspected you after overhearing your talks with Edmund. The chandelier was meant for Clara, who knew too much through her mother." The room gasped. Roland leaping to his feet. "Aunt Beatrice, that sib's absurd." Poirot's eyes never left her. "Non, monsieur. The clues align. The wax seal on Whitby's letter matched your stationery. The chemical residue on the bellows matched your perfume, laced with cyanide from your gardening supplies. You revived the whispers to frighten us, to keep the vault hidden. When I staged the reenactment, you moved to destroy the parchment, but Roland took it first. Lady Beatrice's sister's face crumpled, tears streaming. I did it for the family. The deed would have been stolen, sold to creditors. I couldn't let the manor fall. Poirot's sister's voice was grave. You killed to protect a legacy, madam, but you destroyed lives. The chimney sip's whispers were your voice, amplified by guilt. The constable stepped forward, gently restraining Lady Beatrice as she wept. Clara hugged Emily, who whispered, "No more ghost, lady." Poirot knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "Non petite, only truth remains." As the household dispersed, Poirot returned to the chimney room, the now silent hearth a testament to his victory. The bellows, the flues, the chemical residue, all were tools of deception, dismantled by his little grey cells. The vault's deed, now in the constable's hands, would secure the manor's future, but at a cost. In his room, Poirot closed his notebook, writing, "The web is untangled, the killer unmasked." Lady Beatrice, driven by duty, wove a deadly tapestry. The chimney's whispers are silenced, but their echo lingers in the heart. The truth was unveiled, and Ashwood Manor would never be the same. Chapter 13. The Silent Hearth. The morning sun bathed Ashwood Manor in a golden glow, as if the house sought to shed the shadows of its recent tragedies. Hercule Poirot stood on the gravel drive, his suitcase at his side, his polished shoes gleaming despite the dust of the Yorkshire moors. The whispering chimney was silent at last, its mechanical secrets exposed, its guardian unmasked. The murders of Clarence Whitby and Grayson, the near-fatal chandelier, the order of the saffron veil, all had been laid bare in Poirot's final revelation. Yet as he prepared to depart, Poirot's thoughts lingered on the human heart, where the true mysteries lay. The Manor's drawing-room, where Poirot had unveiled Lady Beatrice Harrow as the killer, seemed a distant memory, though only hours had passed. Her confession, wrung from guilt and desperation, had shaken the household to its core. Driven by a fierce devotion to her family's legacy, she had poisoned Whitby and Grayson to protect the deed hidden in the chimney's vault, a deed that promised to clear the manor's debts and secure its future. The whispering, a cunning revival of the Order's ancient signals, had been her tool to frighten and distract, amplified by a chemical-laced bellows. But Poirot's little grey cells had unravelled her web, and now she faced justice. Poirot walked through the east wing one final time, pausing by the chimney room. The hearth was cold, its burn marks a faint reminder of the deception. The hidden passage, now sealed by the constable, held no more secrets. The deed, a legal document granting ownership of a valuable estate, was in the hands of the authorities, ensuring Roland Harrow's inheritance would save the manor. Yet the cost was heavy. 2 lives lost, a family fractured. In the garden, Poirot found Roland, his face etched with exhaustion. "Monsieur Harrow," Poirot said, his voice gentle. "The manor is yours now, free of its debts, but the weight of truth remains. What will you do?" Roland sets. Eyes were distant. "I never wanted this, Poirot. Aunt Beatrice. She thought she was saving us. I sell the estate. Start fresh. This place, it seeps too full of ghosts." Poirot nodded. Understanding the young man Sip's burden, greed had driven Roland to explore the passage, but his heart had not been cruel enough for murder. "Courage, monsieur. The past is heavy, but the future is yours to shape." Next, Poirot sought Clara Dunley, who sat in the nursery with Emily reading a story. The governess, Sepsa's face was pale, her eyes shadowed by guilt. "Mademoiselle Dunley," Poirot said, "you carried your mother Sep's secrets, but you chose to speak. That was brave." Clara Sep's voice trembled. "I should have told you sooner, monsieur. If I had, Grayson might still be alive." Poirot Sip's mustache twitched. "Non, mademoiselle. The guilt is not yours. You protected la petite Emily, and that is a noble act. What now for you?" Clara hugged Emily, who smiled shyly. Estelle, stay with Emily wherever Roland takes her. This manor, it sits no place for a child. Poirot knelt beside Emily, his eyes warm. Petite, the ghost lady is gone. Oui, you are safe now. Emily nodded, offering him a small drawing of a chimney, its lines shaky but hopeful. Poirot tucked it into his pocket, a memento of innocence amidst the darkness. Dr. Frederick Langston, cleared of murder but chastened by his role, was packing his bags in the study. Monsieur Langston, Poirot said, your curiosity about the order led you close to danger. Will you continue your digs? Langston's smile was wry. I sitsman done with Ashwood, Poirot. I thought I sits find fame, but all I found was trouble. I sits stick to safer ruins. Poirot nodded, noting the archaeologist's relief. Langston's knowledge of the chimney's design had made him a suspect, but his footprints and chemical expertise were mere coincidence, not guilt. The true culprit had been Lady Beatrice, her loyalty twisted into a deadly resolve. As Poirot prepared to leave, Mrs. Poole, the librarian, approached, her sharp eyes softened. Monsieur Poirot, you saved this house, in a way. The records will note your name. Poirot's smile was modest. No, madame, I merely bring light to shadows. The Manor-cist story continues, but without whispers. Boarding the motor car that would take him to the station, Poirot gazed at the Manor's towering chimney, now a silent sentinel. The Order of the Saffron Veil, its secrets exposed, was a relic of the past, its flame extinguished. Yet Poirot knew that human nature, its greed, its loyalty, its fear, would always spark new mysteries. In his notebook, he wrote a final entry. The chimney is silent, its truth unveiled. Lady Beatrice, bound by duty, lost her way. Roland, Clara, Emily, they face a new dawn, but the heart carries its own echoes. The case is closed, but the human mystery endures. Closing the book, Poirot leaned back, his mind already turning to the next challenge. The world was full of puzzles, and Hercule Poirot would always be ready. As the car pulled away, the manor faded into the mist, its stones settling into a quiet that had eluded it for weeks. The hearth was silent, the whispers gone, and Ashwood Manor began its slow healing, forever changed by the truth Poirot had uncovered.